Hello, everyone, and welcome back, hopefully, to All Aboard with Rob Beliveau. I'm Rob Beliveau, and today is an episode for the books. This has been a long time coming, and I've been working with these two guests for a couple years now to see when and where the stars could align that we could bring this to you. And today we're going to be talking about the Desire to Indigenize, a Learning Odyssey course and program from the architects and designers and originators of that program, Joe Eagle Tailfeathers and Dr. Christopher Grignard. Joe is a Blackfoot elder from the Ghana. Did I say that right, Joe?
Ghana.
There you go. See?
Yes.
We all have to be willing to be educated, folks. So thank you, Joe. First Nation from the Blood Reserve in southern Alberta, Canada. Alberta, all the way here.
Windy country.
Wow, windy. Is there any snow there yet?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I know we're dating the episode now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Dr. Christopher, Assistant Professor of Indigenous Literatures in the Department of English, Languages and Cultures. That's a mouthful, isn't it? At Mount Royal University, also in Calgary. Hello, welcome.
On Blackfoot country.
Blackfoot territory. And speaking of territories, Pelagisa, welcome. We are here today on Mi'kma'ki territory. So as we gather, we want to acknowledge their history, their legacy, and the contributions of the stewards of the land. With that, we also want to recognize our African Canadian populations, Nova Scotians, who also call this home. Thank you for joining us today on this very amazing episode as we recognize the shared presence, an important sacred ground, isn't it? So we've introduced the two guests today, and I'm going to stop talking. Chris, we're going to start with you. Yeah. You're on the hot seat. We're here in Halifax. We're going to talk about online learning. Can you tell me just a little bit about your journey into online learning?
Yes. Well, first off, Rob, thank you. You and your partner, business partner, Jill Simpson, thank you for all the work that you've done to bring Joe and I here. Thank you. I know it's been a long time. So,
it's an honor.
So I am an assistant professor at Mount Royal University, and I also want to acknowledge my background. I am a professor of Indigenous literatures. That's what I was hired primarily to teach at Mount Royal University. Among other courses that I teach there, I also teach drama and theater, literature, film, as well as academic writing and composition. But I was hired primarily to teach Indigenous literatures. But I want to acknowledge my ancestry. I am non-native. My background is Filipino on my mother's side and French Canadian on my father's. So I get asked a lot, and I expect to be asked that. It's anyone that's teaching in this area, one subject position and their positionality is really, really important to recognize and to talk about. But I do get asked a lot, what got you into this? And it's a long journey that has brought me, especially with working alongside Joe. Like I've known Joe for 16 plus years. A lot of people don't know that. Relationship building is so crucial, especially for the content that we'll be talking about today. The trust that Joe has put into me to share his is such a sacred part of who he is. So I've been at Mount Royal now for 4 years, and we, like many post-secondary institutions, use a learning management system. There are many LMSs, as we call them. I've been at institutions that have used Canvas, Moodle. There's been Blackboard, all that. But when I started there, they started using D12 the same year that I started. So D12 stands for Desire to Learn. And I've always, being an educator, I'm very interested in a variety of learning spaces. This is the digital learning space. So, and obviously my interest in Indigenous studies, I wanted to indigenize this learning space. So I played with the desire to learn, hence desire to indigenize.
Crafty.
Yeah.
Super crafty.
Yeah. And I really am interested in how we can indigenize learning space. And this is the digital learning space. So when you have a course on D2L, you have this portal image that is the entry photo that the students first see when they enter your course. So for my Indigenous Studies courses, I wanted to have an image that was authentic and something that would complement the concept that I was working with, and that was so grounded in ceremony and the sacred. I also wanted to show folks where I also get my teachings from. And for the Indigenous literary courses, I refer to them as an Indigenous literary lodge. So I conceptualize the classroom as a lodge. I want students to always come back to the sacredness and the realness and the authenticity of the subject matter that they're studying. So I was thinking about the elder that I work closely with, litsooahp'potah, which translates to attacks or battles in the water, Joe Eagle Tail Feathers. And he has a teepee design, and you will see it. Yes, I'm sure the viewers and listeners will see it.
Yet.
So again, having this long history with Joe is I think of this teepee, like the role that this teepee has played in my life is pretty, it's an understatement, but it's really had a strong impact on my life as Joe has. And I wanted the learners also to see where I get my teachings from, especially as a non-native. He's my teacher, he's my elder. So I wanted to show that I'm a student of Joe. So I wanted to have that design, that teepee design for the course. So where do you start? And how do I even, because you have to be mindful of, I'm always reminded of the long history of, especially with academics, working with Indigenous communities, and not for the best reasons, and using their work without proper consultation, and just that history. I'm always reminded of that, and things that, the long history of just the unfairness of non-natives working with Indigenous communities. So, but at the same time, our relationship is one that is so positive, and that's what I'm always trying to model to others, is that these relationships exist, they're harmonious. And so I've approached Joe to see what his thoughts are about sharing his teepee design, and I guess you
can do that. It sounds like you've really found another home in the teepee, in your context of your course, and how you're looking to display that to learners using the system.
Yes, yeah, and I want them to, I mean, that's always the hope, is that the students will also feel a sense of home. And I know these terms, real, authenticity.
Yeah.
They can be, you can put the scare quotes around them. They can be used loosely, but when you work with someone like Joe, you need to experience to use these words with confidence. And the teepee design is the real deal. Joe is the real deal. And that's, I mean, I know later we'll talk about the impacts that this design, the work that I do, has had on students. But yes, I really wanted to, a sense of home should be real. It should be authentic. There should be a real experience.
Well, it sounds like your learners in this course experience a journey, which is more important than the endpoint. Is what you've designed and done with Joe's help and information, which is something we all really, when we're designing online learning, we want to have the best experience for those learners to actually absorb the material and take something away from it, right? And so as we talk about that on this podcast, we've talked very, very frequently about D2L, which is Desire to Learn, Brightspace, the platform, which is the thread that kind of ties a lot of us all together. And we met at a Fusion conference a couple years ago, which laid the groundwork for a new, certainly an amazing new network with the two of you. Joe, tell me about when Chris had this idea, and he's obviously very thoughtful and methodical about how he wanted to approach it, how he wanted to do it the the right way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, how did you receive that, and what could you tell others who might be thinking of exploring a project, a display and information with the Indigenous community? You know, how did it work with Chris, and what can we tell our listeners to think about if they want to do something similar?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having us here.
Yeah.
It's quite a journey getting here. But yeah, that was really, when Chris brought this up, it kind of made me think. 'Cause I didn't know I was going to be doing all this, years ago, being mentored by our elders. And as a child, my playground for the belly buttes. So I was the youngest in the family, and I had my playmate was my horse, my dog. And when I was 12 years old, my dad gave me a 22. So that really brought my playgrounds to a different level. So there's just a high point, and you look west to the mountains and a little bit to the north is Porcupine Hills. And in between there's Belly River. That's our border. And across the river, white farms. And I'd look across there and I think, those people don't know nothing about us. So that was always in the back of my mind. Then years go by, and next thing I realized I'd be running ceremonies. So I thought to myself, I'd like to connect with those people across the river. So anyways, I went through ceremony, whatever. And Chris came as a helper at our Sundance. I really, really admired him. He was tireless and, very... sometimes you ask people to do something for you and tell them too many times, they kind of give you an attitude. But he never did that. He just made me feel good to ask him to do stuff. And not only me, but the other leaders. Yeah, I didn't see that. Sincerity. That's the key thing, is sincerity. Eventually became a helper to him. And he learned the songs, proven himself to me and the other leaders, not only the men, but the women leaders. Then he came up with this request about the tipi design that I have. I said, oh, well, we got to go through ceremony, check, make sure that it's okay. I could say yeah, then they could say no. So everything worked out. Went through sweat, you sponsored a sweat. Then you instructed to sponsor a pipe ceremony with a feast and a giveaway. So you followed through with all that. And then we started. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, how are we going to do this? How is it going to do this? From my point of view, native point of view, I know how it is. But from his point of view, to teach it in the classroom, to teach mainstream people in different races, how is that going to come together? So it was really interesting how it all started piecing together. And yeah, it's pretty amazing how he can do all this stuff. But anyway, he just spoke to me. He's made proving himself, proving yourself, being sincere, and just talk to a person. Don't talk to who they are, what they are. You talk to the human. Yeah, that's what happened.
It's incredible. And what I find very interesting about this learning, so thank you for sharing that with me, and other learnings that I've been on in the last few months as we prepare for some of the things we're going to do this week. I think that's a lesson right there for all of us, and it's something that I've been working on myself to work with you and show that. And I think that sharing that information is actually still quite simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not
Really.
that complicated.
Everyone thinks this is a complicated world, and it doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah, you don't have to walk on eggshells.
No.
No.
So when we think about that, I've been learning different protocol. Other people out there might be wanting to learn the protocol. What would your advice be to somebody who's hesitant they want to, but they just don't know. What is that first reach out that you think works really well?
It's always awkward in the beginning. But I think, like I say, sincerity, speak to the person, introduce yourself, and make yourself available. Yeah, that's about as simply and I can put it.
And maybe don't be afraid to make a mistake.
And that too, yeah, because we know.
Yeah.
I mean, now the roles are reversed.
Yeah.
Us, as a child growing up, I didn't see white people until I go to town. They spoke our language. Our language was my first language. And then when you went to town, my auntie mom didn't speak English, so I was an interpreter for her. And even at that, I was hesitant to say certain things, because sometimes I didn't know how to say it in English.
Yeah.
So I was kind of nervous to, say something wrong. They might laugh at me or kick me out of the stores. But that was really awkward. Okay, now the roles are reversed. Now they're trying to talk to us and understand us and not make a mistake.
Yeah. Folks, I make mistakes all the time, so I know this. And I can tell you, when I first met Joe, I was certainly a little hesitant of how do I engage and talk. And I remember asking you about your last name and the origins, and I wasn't sure if I should or not, but I did, and we had a great, authentic discussion about that. And I thank you for always being so welcoming to me, and I really appreciate it. So, folks, this podcast, we try to have learnings and takeaways, and when we talk about indigenization, the Truth and Reconciliation Report, and the calls to action, don't be afraid. Just ask, and it's been very enjoyable. When we look at the collaboration now, we talk about the course, right? We talk about the course, the Blackfoot Odyssey course. Maybe Chris, to start, it's been running for some time now. Several learners have been through it. What is the feedback you've gotten from both the learners, but even your peers at faculty? How has it been received?
Well, I'll share a little bit of, actually, just to respond to a few points you're making earlier of where do you start.
Yeah.
You need to, again, going back to what I was saying, when you're aware of the history of the distrust and the deceit and the dishonesty, you need to ensure that ultimately Joe, this is his work. This is his intellectual property, to use that term. He is the holder of it. This is he's copyrighted to use these Western terms. And at any point, he can pull out. If it holds me accountable, that if he observes me going in a different direction, if he starts seeing me do things that he's not approving of, for whatever reason, we created a permission form with the guidance of MRU's legal team. I mean, I know once we start talking about legality, people get really nervous, but we shouldn't be nervous about it, because if you are coming through it, to use that word that Joe's using, with sincerity and that humility, also, this is not my word.
I have to worry about it.
I'm really privileged and honored that he's sharing it with me. And this is what academics have to be aware of. This is, you're not taking it and then running off so you can advance your career, that he is the one that is the owner of it. So we created a permission form that states there, that clearly states that it's his work and this is what he's agreeing to. And we have all these stipulations. And it's not to get anyone nervous. No, because if it's with, it's so I'm not nervous about that stuff. If anything, I always say these terms: I'm working to respect you and to protect you, that you're not going to be exploited, that this work is not going to, I'm not going to do something underhanded, and that this work is not going to fall into other people's hands. So these videos, this is now connects to the course. So the Blackfoot Odyssey, so we started with the tipi design, and it's also, we created a video to complement that. So students also can hear the story about the tipi. So they see this design, they're like, okay, that looks interesting. There's a orange circle and there's a yellow line and there's these black triangles. And they'll go, yeah, that looks interesting, but they don't know. And so Joe lives 2 hours away from Mount Royal. So as much as I would love to have him in the classroom to explain that story, it's just, it's really hard to get there.
Logistically tough.
So we created a video, and it's amazing how much he shares in one take in this video. And it's very well done. It was put together by the academic media group at Mount Royal, Chuck Dickens and Ian Borg. They did an amazing video. It's only about 20 minutes long. And Joe explains the story of his TV. So from there, we went to the next level, which is now the Blackfoot Odyssey course. So Joe, again, to talk about all that he does is it's impossible to capture it. And if, of course, there'll be links to provide to the website that we have, Blackfoot Odyssey website. So with these, there's a number, every Indigenous community territory has what is regarded as sacred sites. So on Blackfoot territory, there are many sacred sites, and Joe visited a number of them to attain the traditional protocol to conduct ceremony. So these are the places where he fasted, sacrificed a lot, put himself in very life and death situation. This is really, you need to see the videos to really to see how intense these experiences are. So I'm, again, working as closely as I have with Joe over the years, I'm very fortunate to hear many of his stories. And of course, being in literature and storytelling, I wanted other people to learn from him, and that it's Indigenous literatures is a very Western term, and I recognize there's a great body of work, but we have to be reminded that literature, storytelling preceded literature, and I wanted people to hear the stories that Joe has to offer, so students can see that Indigenous studies is alive and well. It's not an era. It's not a time of a bygone era. So we made 6 videos where Joe talks about 6 sacred sites that he visited where he did acquire those gifts to do what he does now. And the videos are average about 20 minutes.
Okay.
They cannot be found anywhere. They are copyrighted, and in the agreement, either Joe or myself have to be in the room when these videos are screened. Because if we just put it out in the world, who knows who will, we got to protect them.
Protect their secret. After this was all built, Joe, you saw the course. How did that make you feel when you first saw it?
It was really interesting the way it was all put together.
Yeah.
And for me, and seeing these young minds, young people see this, first I wonder how they take it, because it's so different from regular school class kind of thing. I thought to myself, well, yeah, they're going to get something out of it. But there again, the approach has to be right. Open mind, sincerity. If you have that, then you'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
So I was quite impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the feedback that Chris got after the courses were done, and the students gave their feedback. So it was really, really good.
Hello, folks, listeners of All Aboard with Rob Beliveau. Probably wondering why I'm breaking in on this episode, not wearing the same clothes and talking about a change in our structure. This episode was recorded in one take. However, due to the nature of some of the things that came up in it, which were very serious, we felt to give it its best time and place for you to listen and hear and see the remainder of our conversation. We broke this into 2 episodes. So we wanted to give you some context to that the conversation, which was so incredible, so in-depth, and so awesome, we wanted to make sure that you got a fair shake at listening to it. So stay tuned for part 2 of this episode.